welcome to the Gump. Welcome to 2022. Now, I have no idea what number this is, and I'm not going to try. But I am going to say this. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope that this year will be better for you compared to last year, which was all crazy. And I can tell you, I've had a very crazy last year that culminated in me just not being exactly myself lately. Like I said, there's a lot been going on in front of my building doing renovation and some other stuff that I want to say. But it has been easy, but I'm here. And I'm going to entertain you. That part I did enjoy. But this isn't fun. This is not going to be fun for anyone to hear what has to be explained about Toni Storm. Now, I'm sure many people already heard Toni Storm was released from WWE. And I'm sure they're going to say, oh, it's because of budget cuts. It was because she asked for her release. Here's the thing. I've heard JD's side of it. And I've heard just Alex. I've heard Solomonster. Well, roughly what he spoke about. Sean Ross Sapp, and I've also seen a couple of websites to get a good idea what's going on. And this is what basically the gist of it is. She did pretty much the CM Punk, that she took her ball and went home. But unlike CM Punk, where he had been... Let's take a step back. Comparing Toni Storm to CM Punk, yes, it's apples and oranges. You got a very newcomer, very new wrestler in a Toni Storm compared to CM Punk, who went through the indies, who became an indie darling, who went to WWE, who struggled for years in WWE. Yes, got a championship that meant nothing and had numerous injuries, was not allowed to take a break, had his own attitude on top of that, and eventually got sick of it, went home to recover, get married, and then basically was fired by the company on the day that he got married. Whether Paul Levesque enjoyed doing it or not, the company got rid of his ass. And he didn't do anything with business of wrestling until last year. This is a big difference compared to Toni Storm, who has been on the indies, who became very well known in New Japan Pro Wrestling and everywhere else, went to NXT, not only cut her teeth a lot more than what she did in the regular indies and in New Japan Pro Wrestling, became very popular, and everyone under the sun said this one is going to make it. There's no way they could fuck her up flat out, except one person. You're looking at him. JD thought nothing was going to go wrong with her before that. I knew it. And I'm sure many people knew, who've seen me for years, have said that NXT, no matter how well they produce their people, never get anywhere on the main roster. And this is the story. Pretty much, she comes up from NXT, goes to the main roster, sits in the back, does nothing, no dark matches, no specials, no interviews. She sits in the back until they finally show her, and she's in a feud with... And this is where it gets really nasty, guys. What I've always said about Charlotte Flair is that she's not as good as many people think she is. Look what the WWE did. They tried to make Charlotte Flair look strong by basically pieing in the face, I believe twice, a Toni Storm for no reason. No proper feuding. No proper build-up for her. No proper debut much. She was shown in the roster a couple of times, maybe at least once, and did nothing for months. Then they finally show her. She gets a pie to the face, literally. A feud starts. She pies Charlotte back in the face. She has one or two matches with Charlotte, loses to Charlotte, goes into a tag match with a Charlotte and I believe a Sasha, and I can't remember who was working with Charlotte. She pins Charlotte. Then guess what? She has a match with Charlotte. Then she loses again. What was that? She eventually just, and this is where people got it wrong, where they believed that she asked for a release beforehand and they granted it. No, this is what really happened. She had a couple of matches. She went on to SmackDown, had a match with Sasha Banks as a partner. She ate the pin, and she bought a ticket to go home. This girl did not ask for her release. No, she did not. What happened was that after she did her obligation for SmackDown last week, she went to the airport with her stuff, took a ticket, went on a plane, and went home and said she quit. Let me say that again. She quit. And by law, she just did breach of contract where the WWE could sue her ass back in the United States because she went back to Australia. Unless they have some way to be able to try and sue her in Australia, she's done. But then, instead of talking to her, instead of Paul himself counting if he was allowed to, or Vince, or Kevin Dunn, or Bruce Pritchard, or John Laurinaitis, or anyone else who's an executive of the company who deals with talent, to call her to find out what's going on. Are you all right? They already know because she said in interviews she has mental health issues. No one did anything. She was released. They just released her. They didn't try to talk to her. They didn't email her as far as anyone understands. No one called her. The people on the roster were in shock before day one because this is being done the day after day one, guys. This is done on a Sunday in the near evening. But anyone who knew her, who knew of her, didn't have a damn idea what the hell is going on. They were in shock that she's just gone. They don't get it. So this is what we're dealing with now. Now, what does this mean? It's simple. Do you not see? Now, many of my subscribers have seen this for a while now because I've talked about it for years. Anyone from NXT who comes up to the main roster, no matter if it's SmackDown or Raw, gets nowhere. Look at EC3 as an example. If you remember that several videos were made by several other YouTubers who love wrestling, showed EC3 and his enthusiasm after finally coming back to WWE. Because remember, EC3 was hired briefly by the WWE, but they didn't keep him long because he was too green. Went off to Impact Wrestling and any other indie promotion, cut his teeth, got well over, went to NXT, and then showed why he earned everything that he did in TNA and everywhere else. Went up to the roster. He was enthusiastic when he did his EC3 and he does his pose. 2.5 months. 2.5 months after he came up into the roster. EC3. 2.5 to near 3 months. This man's, he was broken. They broke him. Not being able to get anything done. Sitting in the back. Frustration. And now look at EC3. Control your narrative. You know the reason why he does that is because of his experience in WWE. Taught him that when you want to have the best, does not mean you're going to get treated right. That's what we got for an EC3. Now look at Toni Storm, who's known to have mental health issues. She clearly couldn't stand being in the back and probably couldn't stand that she couldn't get anything done. After working her ass off in the second Mae Young Classic, busting her ass and winning it, showing why she's that good. NXT, she proved herself in the UK brand of it, why she was a champion and why people loved the hell out of her. Then she went to the regular NXT roster, proved it again, why people would love her. And in the end, going to the main roster and ending up just sitting in the back doing nothing. Maybe probably saying, hey, I want to do something. What can we do? probably pitching things, and they just said, shut up, go in the back, sit. We don't have nothing for you. They had no idea what to do anything with her. And on top of that, this is what makes it very piss offish. Not only they have no idea what to do anything with her, they didn't care about doing anything with her. And understand, in the back of WWE, they will use you only to make certain people look good. In any other promotion, even, and I want to make this clear, I really am critical of Impact Wrestling because of what's been going on, because of how mismanaged Impact Wrestling has been. Look, I had a long talk with a few subscribers or people brand new that they say, why are you blaming Impact Wrestling? Mercedes didn't want to be there. She turned it down. Well, guess what, genius? How many times over the last 5 to 6 years that there have been more than a few people have gone through Impact Wrestling, have been to Impact, and either have been given an opportunity to sign, but they don't, or were just sitting there doing tapings and was never hired when they really needed them for either the women's division, knockouts, or the men. They just passed right through, and Impact either didn't do anything with them, or, like I said with Moose, for many, many years, Moose was on the roster. He had some good high-profile moments, and then went through filler, and then before the time, his contract was up, because notoriously, Impact Wrestling does not recognize when their talent's contract is up. And I'm saying this again. It's happened for more than a decade. There has been multiple people who was on the roster where the executives of Impact Wrestling, either for creative or who are for production, doesn't even check their contracts with their people, and then they lose them. Or worse, they keep them, they make their contract really embellished, waste a lot of money, and then realize they got nothing for them, and they're sitting around doing nothing, and either, like a Tessa Blanchard, who was heavily credited for being one of the first women to win the major title by the men, what did she do? She was so heavily spotlighted during the pandemic, she said, fuck you, I'm not working with you anymore. And they had to release her, fire her. So, not saying that the wrestlers don't take advantage of Impact Wrestling and they're blameless, because Impact has gone through that, but Impact Wrestling has this problem where they mismanage. But, I recognize, compared to Impact Wrestling to WWE, that they're way better than WWE is. Look, Impact has not always hired people properly, or let them go, or have used them properly, but you can still say with Impact, they can produce good people, and when they're right, they can make good stories that we care about for the company and the wrestlers there. Compared to the WWE, in 2 years, over 200 people have been fired within 2 years. This isn't just wrestlers, guys. These are people with production, executives, wrestlers, people you would not think that should be fired have just been released. You know why? Greed. Not because they're good, not because they're bad, not because they've been overused or underused. They don't care. They want big money. So no matter, even if Keith Lee, for an example, could easily have been a main eventer that could help them, particularly now that Roman Reigns has COVID-19, and we don't even know how long it'll take him to recover, because look what happened to Keith Lee. He had a heart condition because of COVID-19. He's lucky to be alive. And they fired his ass. So here, when it comes to Toni Storm, they didn't even bother to check and see what was wrong with her. She went home, back to Australia, after doing one more show before the end of the year, and instead of calling her up or emailing her. They just released her flat out. This shows you how bad things are. Now, what will happen with Toni Storm? Now, because she has been released, she'll have a 90-day clause, because there's no way she was brought onto the main roster after 3 months and she still had the NXT contract, which only allowed for 30 days. She has a 90-day clause where she can't talk to nobody or work with anybody. But what's going to happen afterward? Well, a lot of people say she's going to AEW. But honestly, this is where it gets interesting. Juice Robinson, her boyfriend, he's in Impact Wrestling. There's a possibility she will go there. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. That would be good for the roster. It'll be good to have another knockout, because as I told one of my subscribers who could not understand what I was talking about with Mercedes Martinez, said that maybe 2 more women to come on. Why are we worrying about the knockouts? We need more men stuff. Do you not understand that both men and women need enough people to do your job? You have almost nobody for the X Division. You have no mid-card title, and you have one main title where how many people are there? Eddie Edwards, Moose. It's not Morrissey. He floats between the low card and the middle card doing nothing. He's not even a tag, which they need. But also, you have the women's main title. And remember, we have a Knockouts tag title. You need over 20 women. Let me say it again. You need more than 20 freaking women to make it look good. And not feel like it did the last year before last, when they brought the title on. They had only 12 women, and they had to have the women double as the ones working with Dana Purrazzo, where she already went through them all already. And also have to work in the damn tag division as well, which made it so stale. It pissed off a lot of people, and they didn't even bother. And I said this back then. Why didn't they bring in indie wrestlers? Why? They couldn't check them out, make sure they were COVID clean, as you want to say it, do a couple of matches with the tag champions, and make it feel like the tag champions were not stuck with the same freaking women over and over again, which had to wander between the main title and the tag title. Now, mind you, nothing wrong with the women wandering back and forth, as long as it isn't obsessive, which it was. They had the same women back and forth so many times, it was ridiculous. Just like the men's tag title and the X Division title. Remember, almost the same people working the tag title and X Divisions wandering back and forth. And it looks bad. They don't even bring in guys from the outside to supplement for the X Division or for the tag titles for that matter. Now, I understand it's not easy. They got to be COVID, regulated. In other words, they got to go through the rules of 14 days. They got to be checked to see if not 14 days, but they got to be checked to see if they don't have the virus, which can take a couple of days. And they have a schedule for their tapings. No one's saying it'll be easy, but you need to make it look fresh. At least once, maybe every 2 or 3 months, make new matches that look fresh by bringing people in who are from indies. Now, they've done it with New Japan Pro Wrestling wrestlers. When they were in Las Vegas, they did bring it in with, what is the guy's, Russell, I believe his name? I can't remember. It's been a while. The guy who was gay. Nothing wrong being gay. I just don't remember his name. That's understandable. But what I'm going back to about Toni Storm is that if you think you don't need more women or more men for your roster just because you brought in 1 or 2 more, you got another damn thing coming. You got the Digital Media Championship, the Women's Championship, the Men's Championship, the X Division Championship, the Men's Tag Championship, and the Women's or the Knockouts Tag Championship. You now have 6 freaking titles, and how many people you got on the roster to handle that? 30 people? Maybe 35 people? And 40 people maybe? Counting on how many of the ratio of men and women? You don't have enough people to make the roster look right. You don't have enough people to make the tag titles or the main titles of both prospective sexes work. So bringing in Toni Storm, bringing back a Mercedes Martinez if she didn't join AEW, bringing back a Taya Valkyrie, bringing back, or actually hiring an Athena. We need people on the roster, but, and I know there's so many people that always in the comments that say, you see, you say it yourself, we need more people. Remember my words, not just bringing in people, but proper booking, writing, and presentation must also be covered, because remember, there's a couple of reasons why many of those people have turned down Impact Wrestling. It's not just because they don't have enough coin. It could also be the roster doesn't look very good because they have almost nobody there. And you already see, if you watch the damn product, that they do the same things with the same people over and over and over again. Who wants to work in a company? And I say this again. Who the fuck wants to work in a company that you have such a thinned out roster, not just because you don't have a huge amount of money, because GCW doesn't have a huge roster, but they bring in people. ROH, hopefully when they come back, will be able to make things work. MLW and NWA, they don't have a huge roster, but they always try to make it look good by bringing in people periodically to make it feel fresh, to show they're willing to expand. If a company doesn't have good writing to go with it, a good presentation of booking, why is anybody going to join it? One of the things I can easily say with the WWE, no matter what anybody want to say, their production is the top notch. I'm not saying their booking is right. I'm not saying how they treat their wrestlers is right. And I'm not even saying the wrestlers treating each other is right. But how they produce the presentation of the video packages, of their lighting, of the camera work, that really does draw in a wrestler or a manager or an executive producer or someone who worked the lighting or just bringing in the sets so they can be set up and do your job. That is important. And if you keep thinking that only hiring people is important or just booking is important, you are not understanding pro wrestling. It takes a lot of stuff to make it work. 1, it takes a good creative team. 2, it takes a very good production group that is within that company to present what is in front of you, next to doing good stories and doing good booking. Then you're going to have to get the wrestlers. You need enough wrestlers to make the lighting look good, to make the production of the camera stuff look good, to make the booking look good. If you do not have all of that working generally together, and understand, I'm not saying it's got to be perfect. And I want to make this clear. This is not about getting things perfect. You just need to be in a good medium where, as long as, there's going to be some downtimes where the production is not great all the time, but at least it's acceptable. And then you got it when it is hot. But you got to have it somewhere in this good medium. Impact Wrestling has been down here more than they've been up here, but at least they've been floating back and forth to at least where, even though I critique them and criticize them for mismanagement, not booking people correctly, not hiring people correctly, or being able to hire somebody to convince them to join them, I know I'm critical. But at least I still love the company and know that even with all those problems, they're way better than WWE. Where, look what happened with Toni Storm. She just up and quit because of how bad it was being done there. You could say because she was an NXT girl, she got fucked. Because honestly, you have seen it. Almost every person in NXT that came from Paul Levesque before Vince took over, when NXT went to USA, because remember, he didn't take over when it was announced. He took over when NXT went to USA. That was in 2019 into 2020. He took over then. He was involved. Anything before then, that was Paul. Anything after, that was Vince. And that's the reason why 90% of the roster on NXT 2.0 is not the original roster from NXT beforehand. The majority of them almost gone. The few that are still there that you do recognize, they may go to the main roster and then disappear. They may be released, or they'll stay on NXT to get all the new people that Vince only cares about over, and they will be screwed. That's the way it's going to be. For Toni Storm, going back to her, this is what's probably going to happen. She's going to take a couple of months off, easily, due to the fact of the clause in her contract. She can't do anything. Then, maybe in the beginning of 2022, Impact Wrestling or AEW. My feeling, because Juice is in Impact, she may go to Impact. She might. There's a good chance she will go to Impact Wrestling. And I'm not saying because it's the best place to go. It's because her boyfriend is there. Kind of like with Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green. That is what's going on with them. They're together. Now, I could be wrong. She could still go to AEW, and AEW can use her, along with Athena, along with Taya Valkyrie, along with, hopefully not Nia Jax, which she'll go by another name, or any other woman that has been released. Tegan Knox, supposedly she's going to be coming back soon in a couple of months, in less than about a month, or already happened, where she will eventually come back. I don't know. I just know that they're going to have a lot of women in AEW, and hopefully some of those women will not go to AEW. They will go to either NWA or, in Toni Storm, if she doesn't go to AEW, she should go easily to Impact Wrestling, which actually could help her. Because the women in Impact, there's not a lot of knockouts there compared to AEW. Let's make this clear. Right now, who has the most women? AEW. Who has done the most best storytelling for the women, even with problems? Impact Wrestling. But because now Impact doesn't really have a large roster, and they have not done very great writing all the time, AEW is going to become better. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be better because they got superior writing. It's just going to have become better because they're more presented on television, no matter what network you see them. So, for her, this might actually be a good thing because there's a lot of women there that don't get a lot of time. So if she does go to Impact, and my hand's out of there, if she does go to Impact, she will have a better chance to be more highly presented and with the feeling of, let's make it clear, like what Kiera Hogan made it feel, like a home, like a family. She may get that feeling a little better than what she would have on AEW because, yes, they care about you like in a family, but, you know, it's kind of hard because there's so many people there, you get lost in the shuffle, and not everyone works. And that kind of reminds me of what's going on with Big Swole and Roman Reigns. So I will be producing 2 videos this coming week. This is the first one. The next one I'm going to release it. I may just, and I want to say this right now, you will get 2 videos this coming week. This will be the first, and I am going to talk about Roman Reigns and Big Swole in the next video, which I'm going to record right now. But I'm probably only going to do a Gump report once a week to kind of cut back because NWA USA is supposed to come online soon, and I don't want to overwhelm myself. So you will either see a Gump report once a week or once every other week. I'm going to try it once a week if I can. But this is just me. Peace.